The movie begins with a pilot named Hal Jordan staring at the stars and talking to Carol Ferris. Carol instructs him to focus on the flight simulation and says he will be in trouble if he is flying a jet. A strange spacecraft flies into Earth's atmosphere and an alien named Abin Sur controls it and he is gravely wounded. The ship crashes on the ground and Abin Sur instructs his ring to find someone worthy. Hal continues the simulation and the people in the control center hear a strange sound. Something crashes into the building and a green light blinds them. The light stops flashing and the people in the control center see that the simulator is missing. Hal realizes he is flying and the simulator lands beside Abin Sur's ship. Hal rushes to help him, but he refuses and says his time has come. He gives Hal a ring and says the Guardians will come for him. Abin Sur tells him to use the power wisely, and the ring saves him as the ship explodes. Hal uses the ring, which has the power of the Green Lantern Corps, to return the simulator to the base, and he emerges from it as the people arrive. He flies around that night and tells Carol he'll be gone for a week. He sees several Green Lanterns approaching, and Kilowog attacks him. Hal fights back as he defends himself, and Sinestro emerges. He introduces himself and says the Green Lantern Corps is an intergalactic force. He instructs Hal to follow them to the Guardians, and Hal agrees. Tomari uses his ring to construct a spaceship, and they fly into space. The group arrives on planet Oa. The Guardians inform Hal that being a member of the Corps is a serious deal and says the ring is a complex tool. They tell him that humans are a terrible race, but Sinestro talks them into it and says he will take Hal under his wing. The Guardians agree and leave Sinestro in charge of Hal. The duo goes to a building where the giant lantern is, and Sinestro says it powers all the rings and contains all the known information of the cosmos. He instructs Hal to place his ring in the lantern and think about the sector they are about to go. Hal extends his arm and sees information from the sector. Sinestro pushes him closer to the lantern, and the surge of information overwhelms Hal. He survives the learning process, and Sinestro says he's impressed because he is a rookie. He talks about the Guardians and says they are powerful but have grown soft. Hal asks Sinestro where they're going, and he says they will find the man who killed Abin Sur. They travel to a backwater world in search of a criminal named Cooch, and Sinestro says he suggested destroying the planet, but the Guardians think he was joking. The duo arrives and Sinestro instructs Hal to remain quiet behind him. They walk to a bouncer and Sinestro asks him if he's seen Cooch. The bouncer pretends not to know who Cooch is and Sinestro strangles him until he admits to not seeing him. They enter the building and Sinestro walks to Labella, his informant. She asks if he has seen Cooch and uses an orb to torture her into telling him where Cooch is. Hal gets uncomfortable and destroys the orb, but Cooch emerges and Sinestro pursues him. Cooch attacks Sinestro as he flies, but Sinestro dodges and continues pursuing him. Sinestro catches him off guard and knocks him into the water, but Cooch moves rapidly as he escapes. He enters the sewer system and sees Hal, who he immediately attacks. A fight ensues and Cooch throws Hal into the water. They move through the pipes and Hal uses a chair to knock Cooch down. He then drops debris on him and knocks him out. Hal emerges on the surface with Cooch and Sinestro pushes him to a wall. He warns him about standing against him and talks about how the Guardians are wasting their power. Several Green Lanterns emerge and Sinestro says they're going to the nearest substation. They follow Sinestro and the Green Lanterns eat while Sinestro interrogates Cooch. Boudica sits with Hal and tells him everyone loved Abin Sur, so he'll have to give them time to get over his death. She tells him that Cooch is a pawn and they are really after Kanjar Ro, a warlord who found the yellow element. Boudica goes into Hal's mind and tells him about the Guardians and how they hid the yellow element, one of their greatest weaknesses, in another dimension. Kanjar Ro found the element, and Abin Sur tried to get information on where he kept it, but was caught and injured. Sinestro talks to some Corps members and says Kanjar Ro and his men will be at a space terminal in a few hours. He instructs them to meet an hour before the time and says they'll go together. Some Guardians emerge and take Sinestro to the interrogation room. They scold him for killing Cooch while interrogating him. And Sinestro says Cooch was being resistant. They instruct him to leave the interrogation of Kanjar Ro to them and leave. The group arrives at the space terminal and Sinestro instructs Hal to watch the perimeter. Kanjaro sees what is happening and communicates with Sinestro telepathically. They agree to meet and talk, and Kanjaro instructs his men to use their faders to avoid being spotted. Boudica talks to Hal and he watches as a mysterious force pushes a man down. He helps the man stand and watches as the smoke clears. Hal stops the moving carriages and uses his light to find Kanjaro's men. They immediately attack him, but Hal dodges and he uses electricity to reveal their location. Kanjar escapes as Hal fights his men, and the other Green Lanterns meet Hal. They pursue Kanjar as he destroys several ships and tries to escape. Hal rushes to a ship about to hit a building and forms a spring that stops it. He helps save the people on the ship, but Sinestro arrives and asks where Kanjaro is. He informs them that the civilians don't matter and instructs them to find him immediately. Kanjar and his assistant enter a ship and take off, and the Green Lanterns pursue him. The ship goes through a rift, and several men shoot the Green Lanterns as they pursue it. Hal hits some of the men as they approach the ship, and Kanjar instructs his assistant to lose some weight. He detaches some sections from the ship, and the debris falls on the lanterns. Hal dodges the debris and successfully gets on the ship as it exits the rift. And Kanjar instructs his assistant to deal with him. Hal enters a room full of robots and sees a strange figure in one of them. The robot suddenly attacks him, but Hal overpowers it, and the man ejects. He shoots at Hal, but Hal deflects the laser and it makes a hole in the ship. The hole causes a suction that sucks the alien out and crushes him in the process. Hal blocks the hole and continues moving in the ship. He enters the cockpit but doesn't see anyone and is suddenly attacked. Kanjar emerges using his fader. He prepares to kill Hal, but Sinestro emerges and threatens to kill him. Kanjar says they can work together, but Sinestro decides to go with his second plan and kills Kanjar. Tomar and Boudica emerge, but they find Hal unconscious and Kanjar dead. The Guardians question Hal and he says he didn't kill Kanjar. They fail to believe him and decide to strip him of his ring. Hal sits in a cell and Kilowog and Boudica meet him. Kilowog acknowledges him as a brave hero and Hal lets him eat his food. He asks Boudica where Kanjar's energy rod is, and she says only Kanjar's brainwaves can control it. Hal then gets an idea, and they decide to follow his lead. Meanwhile, Sinestro enters the morgue and sees Kanjar's body. He uses his ring to reconnect synapses in Kanjar's head and forces him to speak. Kanjar shows Sinestro the yellow element's location, but Hal and the others emerge. They realize Sinestro killed Kanjar, and he is working behind the scenes to find the yellow element. Kilowog instructs him to remove his ring, but he refuses, and Boudica suddenly attacks him. Sinestro asks her to get rid of Hal, and she tries to suffocate him as Sinestro leaves. Kilowog suddenly attacks and knocks her down before she can kill Hal, but she knocks him out. Hal grabs the energy rod and enters a machine as Boudica searches for him. He drops the rod and Boudica hits it with energy from her ring. The attack damages the energy rod, causing it to explode. Boudica gets impaled during the explosion and she dies. Tomar and Aricia enter the room and apprehend Hal. Sinestro arrives at a planet called Quard and meets a weaponer. He says he is there for the element and the weaponer takes him underground. Sinestro sees a yellow lantern lamp, and the weaponer gives him a yellow ring. Sinestro becomes a yellow lantern, and the weaponer says the only imperfection the weapon has is its user. Several Green Lanterns arrive and inform Sinestro that the Guardians want to see him. He tells them the universe has grown too big for the Guardians, and he uses his ring to incinerate the lanterns. Meanwhile, Kilowog and Hal inform the Guardians of Sinestro's betrayal, and they decide to question him before believing their claims. Several rings fall from the sky, and they realize Sinestro killed the men sent to summon him. Sinestro arrives with the yellow lantern lamp, and the lanterns attempt to restrain him, but he breaks free and swings them away. He confronts the Guardians and says there will be a change in authority. The Guardians attack him, but Sinestro breaks free and knocks, destroying the building. He fights the Green Lanterns outside, and the yellow lantern lamp destroys several buildings as it flies around. Hal searches for his ring, and Ganthet helps him retrieve it from some debris. The Yellow Lantern lamp goes to the Green Lantern lamp and destroys it. The Green Lanterns lose their power and begin to fall, but the Guardians save them. Hal saves a lantern as the Green Lantern lamp crashes close to them. He rushes to it and sees the green core that's in it. Sinestro approaches the Guardians as hundreds of rings fall to the planet, and he says they belong to the Lanterns who were in space when they lost their powers. The Guardians agree to listen to Sinestro's demands, and he stops his Yellow Lantern lamp. Hal tries to activate the green core and cracks it. He feels the energy inside, places his ring on it, and receives a surge of energy. Sinestro takes the rings from the Lanterns and destroys them, and he prepares to kill Kilowog, but they see a green light from the distance. He goes to the light and sees that Hal has become extremely powerful. Hal hits him, sending him flying, and he sends the Yellow Lantern lamp out of the planet. Hal hits the lamp several times and sends it into an asteroid belt. But Sinestro attacks him. He hides behind an asteroid and uses his powers to pull 2 moons and destroy the Yellow Lantern lamp. Sinestro emerges and attacks to take Hal's ring, but Hal breaks free and fights. He gathers energy and hits Sinestro, knocking him to the ground. Kilowog sees Sinestro and crushes the ring in his fingers. His ring regains power and saves Hal as he falls to the ground. Later, the Guardians address the surviving Lanterns and say they have fixed the Green Lantern lamp. They commend everyone for their bravery and say great heroism can emerge from a great evil. Ranikar asks Ganthet to lead them in their oath, but Ganthet gives the role to Hal, who he makes an official member of the Green Lantern Corps. Hal walks onto the stage and they lead them in reciting their oath. Hal says he has to return to Earth and he flies away. The end. Thank you so much for watching. Please check out these other videos and make sure to subscribe and tap that bell icon to be notified about our latest videos. We'll see you next time.